It's Weekly Waffle with Beth. Da 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 da. It's Weekly Waffle with Beth and Pablo and Frank. Da da. If you're watching, you can see I'm now holding a spatula because I thought that was a little easy for the mic. Whoa, being joined by both dogs. Right, everybody sit still, no barking, yeah? Because there were a bit of barking went off last week. Right, by some miracle, we're back with episode 2 because enough of you watched. It is a miracle, I know. I'm shocked, you're shocked, Frank's shocked. Everybody's shocked. So big love for that. Just a few things to mention. Firstly, if you're following me on TikTok on Weekly Waffle with Beth, there is some very, very upset people that I said I was a Barnsley lass. Whoa. Or even South Yorkshire. Really upset, some people. Because basically I was born in Wakefield, so that means I'm not. I mean, I've lived here longer, but whatever. We're not going to get technical about it. There were some very, very, very angry men, to be specific, about the situation, but we'll let it slide. You know, it is what it is. Right, first up, how's my week been? It's Tuesday. The weather looks like it's getting hotter, which is not ideal if I'm honest, because I'm 37 weeks pregnant this week, which does mean I'm full term, and I would happily let her come right now. Little bit over being pregnant, but, you know, got to enjoy these last few weeks. People just keep saying to me, enjoy it, you'll never be bored again. All right. I do keep getting people texting me as well saying, I've just had a dream you had the baby. Right, that dream's not a reality, so not really helpful to me, is it, Frank? Positives of the week. I did have a lovely weekend, to be fair. I did another job on Saturday. That is my officially last job. I did a wedding like 2 weeks ago, but Saturday was my last official out of home, like BPF and Co. content job until baby girl arrives and is settled and all that. And then on Sunday, it was Pablo's 5th birthday, and we took him to Cannon Hall, and we went and had a sausage, and it was really exciting. Aside from this dog walked out, and he basically, if Pablo doesn't see a dog coming, like if he sees a dog, he's fine, but if it comes out of nowhere, he freaks, and he like launched himself. So that was a bit embarrassing. You know, but whatever. And if you follow me on TikTok, you'll know that my dogs have decided to turn into puppies when I leave the house and just wee and poo everywhere. And I don't know why. Simply because I think they're just angry that I'm having a baby, but she's not even here yet. What are you going to think when she's here? Frank, if you can see, Frank, look at him now as well, laid on my bump, looking all cute. He's literally, Frank's got his little head on my bump, like, yeah, she's in there, you know? Anyway, aside from that, it was a lovely week. England are through to semis, quarters, I don't know. They won Mexico. And I watched that, right? I got up at 2 a.m. to watch that match. My own husband, world's biggest football fan, he claims, didn't get up. I was like, are you coming? He was like, no. So I sat on my little birthing ball eating cold Dominoes and watched that match and ran around silently when we scored. And he got up at 7 and watched it. Not gonna lie, he probably got a lot more sleep than me, but was it worth it? Absolutely, because he knew the score before the match and I didn't. So I win. I put out a little... Is my mic on? Yeah, sorry, Frank. I put out a little poll to ask what you would like in the next episode. And the 2 most voted things were how I found pregnancy and how I met Jake. Now, I thought it was more appropriate to do how I met Jake first, to then go into the pregnancy, because then you know who impregnated me and how we got together. Now, if you don't know how to get pregnant, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. So if you're listening and you go, I don't know how to get pregnant, get yourself off. You shouldn't be on here, is all I'm going to say. But first up, this episode is themed around my wonderful husband, Jake. So, how did I meet the wonderful Jake? Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to lay a little bit of context of where I was at when I met Jake, as in emotionally, mentally, my point of life. And we will do another episode on, if people want to hear about that period of my life, like prior to Jake. But for context, when I met Jake, I was just under 6 months out of a 5-year relationship. Which is a long time. but also not a long time to be out of a relationship, which I do understand. Some people have got opinions on that. But 6 months before I met Jake, I was utterly, if I'm honest, a mess. I'd had my heart utterly broken, completely blindsided, and I was in a bit of a way. But I'm happy to talk about it. Happy to go into it. If people want to know about that, then that's fine. We can go into that, of how I got to this point where I am today. And when I met Jake, I'd been in this relationship. I'd moved home for a little bit, and then I'd rented a flat down the road from my mum and dad. So I was renting this flat with just Pablo. We didn't have Frank at that point. And I was just trying to survive every day. That was basically my goal in life, was just to get through every single day. And yeah, so how did I actually meet Jake? So it was a Sunday, it was a bank holiday, and my cousin, who's the same age as me, there's like 4 weeks in us, he was like, we're going out this weekend. Bri, his wife, was going, a few lads, few lasses, come out on Sunday. And I was like, yeah, all right. You know, when you do that thing, like, I'll come. I had absolutely zero intention of going. Zero intention of going anywhere that evening. Anyway, I go to church Sunday morning, and he was there, and he was like, you coming tonight, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. Yeah, of course I am. And my mum and my cousin Hannah were like, you are going? I was like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, you are. So basically, they just forced me into going and made me feel really guilty, so that I had to go, really. So my plan was then, I was like, right, well, I'll go for like an hour and then just get a taxi home, and then like, we're winning, aren't we? Tom was like, drive to my house, and then my friend Jake is going to come and pick us up, me, you and Bri, go to the train station, and we're going to go into Wakey. I was like, right, okay, whatever. So I went through, and I'm sat on my cousin's sofa, chatting to Bri, thinking, get me out of here, want to be at home, crying, eating a packet of crisps, whatever. And knock at the door, and in walks this guy called Jake. And he was wearing, I remember specifically, he was wearing jeans. He had like an open shirt and t-shirt on and some Sambas. And I was like, nice looking guy. Didn't really think anything of it. He was like, hi, I'm Jake. I'm like, hi, I'm Beth. Like, hi. Miserable Guts is here. Anyway, he was like, right, I'll drive to the station. So we got all in the back of his car. I was in the back of his car. And he drove us through to the station, and I remember we got on the train, he sat next to me. Again, didn't really think anything of it. I was just like, yeah, nice guy. There was a couple more of his mates. One of his best mates, Jacko, was there. And also Rye, who were his two best friends. They were both there that day, which I now spend a lot of time with, which is crazy. Specifically remember that Jacko had an apple in his pocket, and there was this whole joke thing that when Jacko goes out, he takes an apple in his pocket for like a later on snack. I don't think I've ever seen him eat this apple before, but anyway, that's a different story. We goes into Wakey, and everything was going fine. Like, it was fine. I was having a better time than I thought, so I did stay out. And he actually, on that night, I thought he'd given this girl his number. He hadn't. He'd given her a fake number. But like earlier in the evening, that had happened, and I thought that was really like, oh yeah, look at him, like he clearly is on the pull all the time. And I had said to Brian, my cousin, is he single? And she was like, yeah, he is. And I was like, all right, okay, cool. Little did I know, he'd also asked Brian the same night, is Beth single? And Brian must have said, yes, she is, but she has like not long out of a serious relationship, so just like she's not in a great way, which I appreciate Brian doing, because I didn't like want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But if not, he might have come on really strong, and then I would have been completely freaked out. But he didn't. As the night sort of progressed, he sort of started chatting to me, and he was like, how are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm fine. And as the night sort of went on, so there's a couple of things that I remember specifically happening. Is we were in this, I don't even know what it was. It was a bar, but it was very empty. And he was like, and he'd had quite a bit to drink, and he was like, tell me 3 things you love about yourself. And I was like, I can't tell you 3 things I love about myself right now. I was like, I don't have 3 things I love about myself right now. And he was like, right, the next time I see you, boy, you're going to see me again, are you? I want you to tell me 3 things you love about yourself. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I was like, cute, like, whatever, you drunk. And then I remember him saying to me, how you getting home? And I was like, oh, my dad's coming to pick us up. And he was like, do you need to let Pablo out when you get back? I was like, yeah, but I live in a flat, so I've just got to walk him around the road. And he was like, no, you're just going to put the lead outside and then straight back in because it's too late and it's dangerous. And I was like, where do you think I live? But I remember that being quite funny. And then like we walking down the street and he had like his arm over my shoulder. And he just made me feel so relaxed. Like, but at that time, I genuinely didn't think anything of it in terms of like it was ever going to come of anything. I was just like, this guy's had a few drinks, like he's funny, whatever. Next morning, I gets up, it's Bank Holiday Monday, and I got a Facebook request from Mr. Jake Leasley. And I was like laughing because I've screenshot it on my phone. And he didn't do anything. Like, he didn't message me. So I was like, I was going to message him. So I just messaged him and put, how's the head? Like, because I knew he'd had a drink. Now, I actually only had like 2 drinks. I wasn't really drinking at this point. And he like responded and was like, yeah, just a little bit sore, but we'll get, we're there, blah, blah, blah. This was about dinner time. And we sort of got chatting, like back and forth on text a little bit, like over like lunch. And he was like, what are you doing today? And I was like, oh, I'm just at home. And he was like, oh, well, do you fancy meeting up for a dog walk? And I was like, oh, like instantly panic mode. I was like, no, can't do that. No, not ready for that. So I came up with some like lame excuse that even though he just asked me what you were doing, I was like nothing. Some lame excuse. And he was like, all right, no worries, maybe another time I'm going to take the dogs out. And he like sent me some pictures of his dogs, like, and it was really cute. And I sent him a picture of Pablo. Anyway, we sort of messaged on and off for like a good couple of weeks. And then after a couple of weeks, he asked me to go for, I think the first time he asked me was for an evening meal. He was like, do you want to go for some tea? And I was like, yeah. And then I cancelled. And then we tried again about a week later. And basically this happened about 3 or 4 times for about a month, where I think he did cancel once, but the rest of the times I always cancel on like really last minute as well, like on the day. Because I think I was so in my head about it. I was just like, no, I can't do this. But I couldn't get him out my head. And I think what I loved about him was the fact that he wasn't like full on Messenger. Like he was actually quite hard to get a hold of. Like his text messages were like 4-hour responses. But I found that, I don't know, like endearing. It was really weird. And all I could keep thinking about was the fact that he kept saying about this thing about tell me 3 things you love about yourself. And I'm like, I've never, even as a drunk man, like I've never had someone say that to me before. So eventually he asked me out again and he was like, do you want to go for an evening meal on Friday? Let's go to Crown and Anchor. And I went. I did it. Now, I think he hook, line and sinkered me because he said, I'll come and pick you up. So I was like, oh. Caught me caught there, haven't you? So we went on this day. We had a funny thing because he couldn't park in the car park. We went for a meal. He'd actually had a bit of a cold, which was funny because he had like this coughing fit halfway through. And on the first day, I remember before we went, I was like, right, if I'm going to start dating this guy, I am going to make it very clear of what I want. So for context, my ex, the reason we broke up was because he didn't want to get married and didn't want to have kids, even though he'd known full well that's something I always wanted. So I was very clear on my first date with Jake. I literally said to him, I want to get married and I want a nice big wedding and I want to have kids. Now, maybe that caused the coughing fit, but married and kid on the way now. So all I'm going to say is clearly worked, didn't it? You've got to put your feelers out there, ladies. If that's what you want, then make it known. So I was quite clear and honest about what I wanted from day dot. Anyway, we went for the meal and then they were like, do you want to go for a drink after? So we went for a drink after. And I remember the whole time thinking, I'm doing this. I am doing this. Now, between Jake and my ex, I had been on a few dates. I had put my feelers out there. I had tried to like do dating and stuff. And they were all just fine, but there was nothing, nothing there. But I came home from the date and I was like, yeah, that went well. Still trying not to overthink it to the fact that, is this going to be something serious? Because I didn't want to put the pressure on myself. I didn't want to put the pressure on him. Obviously, I know I'd said I want to get married and have kids. It was just so more that he wasn't just going to mess me about. Like, if he was serious, he was going to come back for another date. So we texted on and off through the week, and he was like, do you fancy going out again next Friday? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So he was like, let's do something different. I've got the day off work. Should we go for a walk? So I was like, yeah, lush. This was so the first date was on like the 2nd of June. So this was also like mid-June. So it was hot, like hot. Because the day after his first day, I actually got sunburn. And then the following week, we've never been back, somewhere in Sheffield for this long walk. And it was like a hike thing. So we had to walk up this big hill. No word of a lie, I was dripping with sweat. And I remember at one point, he like put his hat, like his hand on my back. And I was like, I'm so sweaty. And he was like laughing. And I was just like, oh my word. And I do remember the fact that he had on, bear in mind, it was June. He had a t-shirt, jeans, and like some football trainers on for going on a walk. And I was like, what the heck? What are you wearing? I do remember thinking that. I don't even know where those trainers are. I think I must have told him, why are you wearing that? I probably did tell him on the date, why are you wearing those? Anyway, we went for some lunch. I think we went back to his house then. So he was living at home with his mum and dad. And we sort of like sat out in the garden. And then I'm pretty sure at this point, he'd not kissed me, he'd not made a move or anything like that. And I was a bit like, I think is he going to make a move? And so I went to leave. I like left in the afternoon. And we're in his like hallway and he thinks it's hilarious. He says I said, come here, and like grabbed him. I didn't do that. That is very dramatic. I probably just leant in and was like, you going to kiss me or what? Anyway, we had a first kiss. It was nothing. It was just a little peck. And that was that. And then he came to the flat for like the first time, like the following week. I told him that there was a TV show that I thought he'd love. What is it called? It's the one on Apple, the football one. Ted Lasso. I was like, you'll love this TV show called Ted Lasso. So he came to my house and we watched it. And he told me that he was like obsessed with biscuits. So I got like these cool like new biscuits and stuff like, you know, just that sort of stuff. And I did pick up on the early stages that he was a terrible texter, terrible communicator. So the only way I could really bond with him was if I saw him. So I started seeing him like every couple of weeks, not every couple of weeks, a couple of times a week. I go to his, he come to the flat. He met Pablo and Pablo just loved him from the very beginning. And then that was like June. And then obviously first date was beginning of June. Then it was like my dad's 50th birthday in the August, and we had loads of family things going on. So we'd been seeing each other for about 6 to 8 weeks, and I literally just brought him along to everything. Now, we call the day we got together as first date because we don't really have a point where it was like, are you my boyfriend or girlfriend? So we just sort of, you know, that was that. So I brought him along to all them. Everybody absolutely loved him. And basically that was it. His mum and dad were basically selling their house, and Jake had the option of the fact that he'd been looking to buy his own house. But I was obviously renting. And he was a little bit like, I don't want to go and buy a house. Like, things are getting, you know, they're going well between me and you. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I just go and live with like his sister or something? And this is how laid back he'd like made me as well, because I never would have done this. I was living in the flat and I was just like, let's come live with me. And he was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, if you want. Because I was in my head, I was just like, well, I don't own the place. Listen, the rent is in my name. If it doesn't work, then I have to ask you to leave. Like, it's a good test. So he moved in like the September, so not long at all. And then we got Frank like 2 weeks later. Whole story on how we got Frank, but we got Frank like 2 weeks later. So moved in, got a dog. And then the rent on the flat was going to be running out the following April. So we'd have been together just under a year when the rent of the flat was running out. And the guy from the rent place basically said to me, you can either extend it for 6 months or 12 months, or you have to leave. And Jake was a bit like, I don't want to be spending more money on rentals. Like, why don't we start looking for a house? So we did. And we bought this house. We bought this house in obviously the following April. So we've been together just under a year. So then we were together a year in June. And then when we were together for 18 months, in the September, he asked me to marry him. We went to Faro and he asked me to marry him. Honestly, this guy is just, I love him to pieces. And this should have been a 10-minute episode and it's turned into 20 because I've talked about him that much. Yeah, he's just a diamond. He is the calm to my storm. He is the most chilled, laid back going man I have ever met. He cheers me on no matter what. And we're so opposite. Like, he would never do anything like this. He wouldn't do, he barely knows where his phone is most days. He doesn't know how to text me back. He doesn't know how to upload an Instagram post. Like, he doesn't, like, he's, how our worlds are so different, but they work so well together because we also have so much in common. He's gonna make the best dad in the world. And I already know it. Like, I don't even, he's the best dog dad. So human dad, he will nail it because he's just got a heart of gold. I think the little girl will be wrapped around his finger because he will literally let her get away with murder. But he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I can't even put into words how much I adore him. And I am aware it was fast. I am aware that our relationship went very fast. Now, we've been together over 3 years now. We're married. We're having a baby. And we're great. And we've been through a fair amount of challenges. We have a lot of things that have happened in our private life and still happening in our private life that I obviously don't share on social media that have been hard and are tough. So we've had a fair amount of challenges. Marriage isn't easy. Anyone will tell you that. It definitely isn't easy. We've completed year 1 and we're all good. On to year 2 and we're bringing a baby into the world, and I know that is going to completely mix up our relationship all over again. But I'm confident that we'll be okay. And then we always say we are such a team. Like, it's a team effort. Everything we do is me and him. We are a team. And ladies, if you know, you know, is all I'm going to say. Is don't ever think it's too fast, or you will feel it in your heart, you know? And if you ever have any minor red flags, then you know that it's not right. But if everything just seems okay and it's right, then trust your gut. Trust your gut. And that's what I did with Jake, and it paid off. And he's my everything. And I couldn't do life without him. I wouldn't be here without him. He's the reason we have this beautiful home, and we've got a beautiful baby on the way. And yeah, the reason we keep life going, because he keeps us on the straight and narrow. Because if it was down to me, I don't know where we'd be. But yeah, that is how I met Jake. That is how we got to where we are. Yeah, what a mad one. But in the next episode, we will discuss how I found pregnancy, how Jake has found pregnancy, how we found out we were pregnant. Was it planned? Was it not planned? How did that all work out? I'll go into that of what we did. But if there's anything else anybody wants to hear, drop it in the comments, drop me a DM on Instagram, anything like that. Let me know and we'll add it to the list. But thank you so much for listening. We've nailed episode 2, ladies and gents. I am so proud of me, you, and the dogs that you've come back. Thanks everyone for following me. If you've not already, please drop us a subscribe on the Spotify, the Apple, YouTube, whatever you're watching this on. You are the best. I'll try to stop saying When I listened back to the other one, that really annoyed me. That's how we're going to finish it. Love you lads. See you next one. Bye.